My name is Ryan Mitchell, and this is the story of how I discovered that the people closest to you can architect your destruction with the same precision they once used to build your trust. What started as a simple act of coming home early became a master class in human deception that would ultimately teach me the most valuable lesson of my life. Sometimes the greatest gift someone can give you is showing you exactly who they are. I was 32 years old, living what most people would consider the American dream in suburban Denver, Colorado. As a senior logistics manager for Consolidated Freight Systems, I earned a six-figure salary coordinating supply chains across the western United States. My corner office overlooked the Rockies, and my reputation as someone who could solve impossible problems had made me indispensable to the company. But my real identity wasn't defined by corporate success. It was built around being the family provider, the reliable son, the responsible older brother who made everything possible for everyone else. This role had become so fundamental to who I was that I couldn't imagine existing without it. My wife Vanessa was 29, a striking brunette with green eyes and a laugh that had first captured my attention at a Denver Art Museum fundraiser 5 years earlier. She had worked as a marketing coordinator for a tech startup before we married, but had left her career 2 years into our marriage to focus on personal growth and prepare for starting a family. What she was actually preparing for, I would later discover, was something entirely different. Vanessa possessed an almost supernatural ability to make people feel like they were the most important person in the room. It was a gift that had made her successful in marketing and had certainly worked on me. I was completely devoted to her, perhaps even obsessed with making her happy in ways that, looking back, should have concerned me. Our struggles with conceiving had become the unspoken weight in our marriage. 18 months of trying, 3 fertility specialists, and countless tests had yielded nothing but increasingly clinical conversations about ovulation windows and sperm counts. The spontaneity had long since drained from our intimate life, replaced by scheduled encounters that felt more like medical procedures than expressions of love. "Maybe we're trying too hard," Vanessa had suggested one evening in February, her voice carrying a note of relief that I hadn't recognized as suspicious at the time. "All this pressure isn't good for either of us." I had agreed, thinking we both needed a break from the emotional roller coaster. What I didn't realize was that she had already found a very different kind of emotional outlet. My younger brother Alex was the golden child who had never needed to try hard for anything. At 22, he possessed an effortless charisma that made people gravitate toward him like plants seeking sunlight. Where I was methodical and serious, Alex was spontaneous and magnetic. Where I had built my success through discipline and countless hours of overtime, Alex seemed to collect achievements and admirers simply by existing. He was in his final year studying architecture at the University of Colorado Boulder, his tuition and living expenses completely covered by monthly transfers from my checking account. This arrangement had never felt burdensome. I was proud to invest in my brother's future, especially since our parents couldn't afford to help. Our parents, Robert and Helen Mitchell, were the kind of people who had built their lives around the belief that family loyalty trumped everything else. Dad had spent 31 years working at a Chicago steel mill before a herniated disc ended his career at 58. Mom had worked as a school administrator until budget cuts eliminated her position during the recession. They lived on Dad's disability pension and Mom's part-time work at a church office, stretching every dollar with the skill that comes from decades of practice. I sent them $800 every month to help cover Dad's medications and the gap between their income and expenses. Like supporting Alex's education, this felt natural and right. I was the son who had made it, and with success came responsibility. This dynamic had defined our family for years. When Alex's car broke down, he called me. When our parents needed help with a medical bill or home repair, they called me. When anyone had a crisis, celebration, or simply needed advice, I was the first person they contacted. I had become the cornerstone that held everyone else's life in place. Looking back, I can see how this arrangement benefited everyone except me, but at the time, it felt like the natural order of things. I was the responsible one, the provider, the problem solver. This identity was so deeply embedded in my sense of self that I couldn't imagine questioning it. The warning signs had been there for months, hidden in plain sight like a structural flaw that only becomes obvious after the building collapses. Vanessa's gym membership was the first change I noticed. In January, she joined an upscale fitness center downtown, trading her casual home workouts for daily sessions with a personal trainer named Derek who she mentioned frequently in conversation. "Derek says I need to focus more on compound movements," she would tell me, or, "Derek thinks I should try that new cycling class." Derek's opinion seemed to carry unusual weight with her, but I attributed this to professional expertise and her newfound dedication to fitness. The physical changes were undeniable. Within weeks, Vanessa's body had transformed in ways that 18 months of casual exercise hadn't achieved. Her clothes fit differently, her posture changed, and she carried herself with a new confidence that was both attractive and somehow alien. "You look incredible," I told her one evening as she prepared for another gym session. "Thank you," she replied with a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. "I'm finally starting to feel like myself again." At the time, I interpreted this as a positive development in our relationship. My wife was taking care of herself, building confidence, and emerging from the funk that our fertility struggles had created. I was proud of her commitment and supportive of anything that made her happy. Alex's increased presence in our home was another change that seemed benign at first. He had always been a frequent visitor, but starting in early February, he began appearing during weekdays when I was at work. His explanation was always the same: he needed a quiet place to study away from his noisy roommates. "Alex was here again today," Vanessa would mention casually when I came home. "He's working on some big project for his structural engineering class. I made him lunch and let him use your office." "That's nice of you," I would reply, genuinely pleased that my wife and brother got along so well. Many of my married friends complained about tension between their spouses and siblings, so I considered myself fortunate. Vanessa always spoke warmly about these visits. "Your brother is such good company," she would tell me. "He helped me reorganize the garage this afternoon, and he brought me flowers from that farmer's market downtown. Such a thoughtful young man." The flowers should have been a red flag, but I rationalized it as Alex being considerate, perhaps even practicing the kind of gestures that would make him a good boyfriend someday. The garage reorganization, the lunch preparations, the easy familiarity between them, all of it felt like evidence of a healthy family dynamic rather than warning signs of betrayal. Their text message exchanges became more frequent too, though I only noticed this in retrospect. Vanessa, who had never been particularly attached to her phone, suddenly seemed to have it with her constantly. She would smile while reading messages and type responses with an enthusiasm I hadn't seen directed toward anyone in months. "Alex again?" I would ask when I noticed her texting during dinner. "Just making plans for his visit tomorrow," she would reply, setting the phone aside with what I now recognize was reluctance. The most insidious change was in our intimate life, which had been struggling even before our fertility focus but now seemed to disappear entirely. What had once been a source of connection between us became increasingly rare and mechanical. Vanessa often claimed to be tired, stressed, or simply not in the mood. "I think we should see a counselor," I suggested one evening after another rejected advance. "Maybe talking to someone could help us reconnect." "I don't think we need counseling," she replied quickly. "We're just going through a rough patch. These things work themselves out." Her certainty was so complete, her dismissal so immediate, that I didn't push the issue. I trusted her judgment about our relationship, just as I trusted her about everything else. This trust, which I had always considered one of my strengths, was being weaponized against me in ways I couldn't have imagined. March 15th arrived with the kind of crisp Colorado morning that makes you grateful to live near the mountains. I had been planning Vanessa's surprise for weeks, our monthly flower tradition to commemorate the anniversary of our first meeting. Usually, I would stop at the grocery store florist on my way home from work, but that day I wanted to do something special. The morning had been unusually productive at work. A shipment crisis that had been keeping me up nights finally resolved when I found a routing solution that would save the company nearly $50,000. My boss, Janet Morrison, was so pleased that she suggested I take the afternoon off. "You've been putting in too many late nights," she said, reviewing the cost analysis I'd prepared. "Go home early and surprise your wife with this good news. Maybe celebrate a little." The timing felt perfect. I could visit the upscale florist downtown, pick up something truly spectacular, and be home by 3 p.m. with enough time to plan a romantic evening. The idea of seeing Vanessa's face when I walked through the door unexpectedly with beautiful flowers made me smile as I drove across Denver. Petal and Stem was exactly the kind of place Vanessa would love, an artisanal flower shop in the Arts District where every arrangement was treated like a masterpiece. The owner, a woman named Claire with paint-stained fingers and an artist's eye, listened carefully to my description of Vanessa. "White roses with baby's breath," she mused, selecting stems with the precision of a surgeon. "Classic, but we can make it special. What about adding some eucalyptus for texture and wrapping it in this cream silk ribbon?" The finished arrangement was stunning, elegant, romantic, and substantial enough to make a real impression. At $68, it was 3 times what I usually spent on flowers, but Vanessa's reaction would be worth every penny. As I drove through our neighborhood, I noticed Alex's red Honda Civic parked in our driveway and felt a moment of pleasant surprise. He wasn't scheduled to visit until the weekend, but maybe he had finished his midterm exams early. I could surprise them both, Vanessa with the flowers and Alex with my unexpected early arrival. I parked on the street instead of pulling into the garage, wanting to maintain the element of surprise. The front door was unlocked, which wasn't unusual when Vanessa was expecting someone. I could hear music playing from inside, something soft and romantic that I recognized as one of Vanessa's favorite playlists. Carrying the bouquet behind my back and grinning at my own cleverness, I crept quietly through the foyer. The music was coming from the living room and I could hear soft voices underneath it, Vanessa and Alex talking in the kind of low, intimate tones that people use when they don't want to be overheard. What I discovered when I reached the living room doorway didn't just break my heart, it shattered my entire understanding of reality. There, on the cream-colored sectional sofa that we had spent 3 Saturday afternoons shopping for, my wife and my brother were entwined in an embrace that left no room for innocent interpretation. Vanessa was wearing the silk robe I had bought her for Valentine's Day, but it was untied and falling off her shoulders. Alex was shirtless, his clothes scattered across our hardwood floor like evidence of urgent passion. They were kissing with an intensity that I hadn't experienced with Vanessa in over a year, their hands moving over each other's bodies with obvious familiarity. This wasn't a moment of weakness or a single mistake. The comfort level between them made it clear that this had been happening for some time. But it was their conversation that truly destroyed me. "God, I've missed you," Alex murmured against Vanessa's neck, his voice thick with desire. 3 days felt like forever. "I know," Vanessa whispered back, running her fingers through his hair. I kept thinking about Sunday afternoon. I could barely concentrate on anything else. "When does Ryan usually get home?" Alex asked, pulling back to look at her. "Not until 6:30, sometimes later if there's a crisis at work," she replied. "We have plenty of time." Alex smiled in a way I had never seen before, predatory and satisfied. "Good. I want to take my time with you today." "We can't keep doing this forever," Vanessa said, though her tone carried no real conviction. "Someone's going to figure it out eventually." "Maybe that wouldn't be such a bad thing," Alex replied, and something in his voice made my blood run cold. "I'm tired of sneaking around. I want to be able to hold your hand in public, take you out properly, show the world how I feel about you." "What are you saying?" "I'm saying that after I graduate in May, maybe it's time to stop pretending. Ryan deserves to know the truth, and we deserve to be together openly." Vanessa was quiet for a moment, and I found myself holding my breath, waiting for her response. "You really think we could make it work? Out in the open?" "I know we could. What we have is real, Vanessa. It's not some college fling or moment of weakness. I love you." "I love you too," she replied, and the tenderness in her voice was like a knife twisting in my chest. They began kissing again, more passionately than before, and I finally found the strength to back away from the doorway. Somehow, I managed to make it out of the house without making a sound, my legs carrying me on autopilot while my mind struggled to process what I had witnessed. I sat in my car for what felt like hours, staring at the expensive bouquet that now seemed like a cruel joke. The white roses and baby's breath that were supposed to represent our love and commitment were wilting in the Denver heat, just like everything I had believed about my life. How long had this been going on? How could I have been so completely blind? And most troubling of all, what did Alex mean about telling me the truth after graduation? Were they planning to ask me for a divorce so they could be together? The rational part of my mind insisted that I should march back into the house and confront them immediately. Demand explanations. Throw Alex out. Force Vanessa to choose between her marriage and her affair. But a colder, more calculating voice whispered different advice. If I confronted them now, they would deny everything, minimize what had happened, promise it would never occur again. They would be more careful in the future, more secretive. I would never know the full extent of their betrayal or how long it had really been going on. More importantly, they would control the narrative. They would frame this as a moment of weakness, a mistake born from confusion and inappropriate feelings that they were committed to overcoming. I would be cast as the understanding husband who was willing to work through this crisis, and they would be the remorseful family members who had learned from their error. I couldn't let them write that story. By the time I returned home at my usual hour, I had made a decision that would change everything. I was going to find out the truth, all of it, before I made my move. If there was going to be a reckoning, it would be on my terms, with complete information at a time and place of my choosing. Alex's car was gone when I pulled into the driveway. I found Vanessa in the kitchen, humming while she prepared dinner. She looked radiant, more beautiful and alive than I had seen her in months. The glow that I had attributed to her new fitness routine now had a very different explanation. "Hi, sweetheart," she said, rising on her tiptoes to kiss my cheek. Her lips were still slightly swollen from her afternoon activities. "How was your day?" "Same as always," I replied, studying her face for any sign of guilt or nervousness. There was none. She was either an incredible actress or completely at peace with what she was doing. "How about yours?" "Oh, pretty quiet. Alex stopped by for a few hours to work on some project. He said to tell you hello." She smiled innocently. "Such a sweet boy." Sweet boy. The same sweet boy I had seen with his hands all over her body 3 hours earlier. "What kind of project is he working on?" "Something for his structural engineering class, I think. Very technical, lots of calculations and diagrams." "He used your office so he could spread everything out on the big desk." "My office?" They had been in my office. The violation felt both intimate and territorial, as if they had deliberately chosen to defile the space where I worked to support both of them. "That's nice of you to let him use the space," I managed to say. "Did you two spend much time together, or was he focused on studying?" "A little of both. I made him a sandwich for lunch and we chatted while he took a break. He's really excited about graduating. Apparently he's already had some interviews with firms in Denver." "Job interviews in Denver." So Alex was planning to stay local after graduation, which would make continuing their relationship much easier. The pieces of their long-term plan were becoming clearer. That night, lying in bed next to my wife, I stared at the ceiling and formulated my strategy. I needed evidence, concrete, undeniable proof of what was happening. I needed to know the full scope of their betrayal, how many people might be aware of it, and exactly what their future plans entailed. Most importantly, I needed to maintain my role as the unsuspecting husband until I was ready to reveal everything I had discovered. The next morning, after Vanessa left for what she claimed was a yoga class, I began making phone calls. My first conversation was with Marcus Webb, a private investigator whose name I had found through a discreet online search. His website was understated but professional, focusing on marital infidelity and domestic investigations. Marcus's office was located in a nondescript building in downtown Denver, the kind of place you could visit without attracting attention. The man himself was in his mid-50s, with graying hair, intelligent eyes, and the calm demeanor of someone who had seen every possible variation of human betrayal. "I need to know everything," I told him after explaining the situation. "How long it's been going on, where they meet, what they say to each other, who else knows about it. I want a complete picture before I decide how to proceed." Marcus listened without judgment, taking notes in a small leather notebook. "I have to warn you, Mr. Mitchell," he said when I finished. "Sometimes the investigation reveals information that's more painful than what you initially suspected. Are you prepared for that possibility?" "I need to know the truth," I replied. "Whatever it is." "Fair enough. My standard rate for this type of case is $200 per day plus expenses. Based on what you've told me, I'd estimate we'll need at least 2 weeks to build a comprehensive picture. Does that work for your budget?" $3,000 felt like a lot of money, but it was a fraction of what I had already invested in supporting the people who were betraying me. "Cost isn't a concern. I want you to be thorough." "I will be." "One more question. What's your ultimate goal here? Are you looking to salvage the marriage, or are you building a case for divorce proceedings?" The question forced me to confront something I hadn't fully admitted to myself. "I honestly don't know yet. But I want to have all my options available when I make that decision." Marcus nodded approvingly. "Smart approach. I'll start surveillance tomorrow and provide you with daily reports. Is there a secure way I can contact you without raising suspicions?" We arranged for him to send updates to a new email account I would set up, and I left his office feeling like I had finally taken some control over the situation. While Marcus began his professional investigation, I started my own amateur surveillance operation. That afternoon, I visited an electronics store and purchased a small high-definition camera designed for home security. The device was barely larger than a matchbox and could be easily concealed behind books or decorative objects. I also bought a voice-activated recording app for my smartphone and set up several old phones around the house as listening devices. The technology felt overwhelming at first, but desperation is a powerful motivator for learning new skills. The hardest part of the entire process was maintaining my normal routine. Every morning I kissed Vanessa goodbye and told her I loved her. Every conversation with Alex involved thanking him for visits with my wife and asking about his studies. Every interaction felt like swallowing broken glass, but I forced myself to be the same devoted husband and generous brother I had always been. 3 days into my surveillance, the hidden camera captured exactly what I expected to see. Alex arrived at 2:15 p.m. while I was at work, and within 10 minutes he and Vanessa were in each other's arms. Watching the footage later that evening while Vanessa showered, I saw them make love on our sofa with a passion that made me physically sick. But it was their post-intimate conversation that provided the most devastating insights. "I feel terrible about lying to Ryan," Vanessa said as they lay together, her head on Alex's chest. "He's been so good to me, to both of us really. He pays for your school, helps your parents with their bills." "Don't feel guilty," Alex replied, stroking her hair. "Ryan's a good guy, but let's be honest, you two haven't been truly happy for a long time. What we have is different. It's real passion, real connection. I know, but I still feel like we're betraying someone who doesn't deserve it. Sometimes people grow apart. It doesn't make anyone a bad person. And Ryan's strong enough to handle this when the time comes. He might even be relieved." "You really think so?" "I know so. He's been going through the motions just as much as you have. When we tell him, it might be exactly what he needs to find someone who's truly right for him." The casual way they discussed my feelings and my future made me realize that I had been living with strangers. These weren't the people I had loved and supported for years. They were actors playing roles, manipulating my emotions while planning my humiliation. Over the following week, Marcus provided updates that painted an even more complete picture of their deception. He had photographed them together at restaurants I couldn't afford on my salary, hotels that cost more per night than most people earned in a day, and various locations around Denver where they held hands and kissed like a legitimate couple. "The affair has been ongoing for approximately 8 months, Marcus reported during our meeting the following Tuesday. "It appears to have begun around Vanessa's birthday last year. I've also been monitoring your brother's social media accounts and text messages, with some concerning discoveries." He showed me screenshots that made my stomach turn. Alex had been sharing details about his relationship with Vanessa in a group chat with his college friends, describing intimate moments and making jokes about how oblivious I was. One message particularly stood out: "Ryan's such a Boy Scout, he'd never suspect anything. He thinks everyone's as honest as he is. It's almost too easy." Another friend had responded, "Dude, that's your brother's wife. Isn't this kind of messed up?" Alex's reply: "Ryan and I are different people. He's the responsible provider type, but Vanessa needs passion in her life. I'm giving her something he can't." Reading those messages felt like being stabbed repeatedly. Not only was Alex betraying me, but he was mocking me to his friends, portraying me as some kind of naive fool who deserved what was happening to him. "There's more," Marcus continued. "I've been listening to their phone conversations, and they're definitely planning to tell you about the relationship soon. From what I can gather, they want to come clean after your brother graduates in May. They're going to ask me for a divorce? It seems that way. They've discussed it several times, always framing it as the honest thing to do. They appear to believe that by being forthright about their feelings, they're somehow minimizing the betrayal." The arrogance was breathtaking. They were planning to present their affair as a noble act of honesty, probably expecting me to graciously step aside for the sake of their true love. "Is there anything else I should know?" Marcus hesitated for a moment. "There is one more thing. Your wife has been researching divorce attorneys and Colorado property law. She's been particularly focused on spousal support calculations and asset division. So Vanessa wasn't just planning to leave me for Alex. She was strategizing how to extract maximum financial benefit from our divorce. The woman I had supported through 2 years of unemployment was preparing to take half of everything I had worked for while moving in with the brother whose education I had funded. That night, I made a decision that would determine how the rest of this story unfolded. If they wanted honesty, I would give them honesty. If they wanted to control the narrative of our separation, I would write a very different story. And if they expected me to react like the predictable, accommodating person they thought I was, they were about to discover how wrong they had been. Vanessa's birthday was April 2nd, just 3 weeks away. We had already made plans for a celebration. I had reserved the private dining room at Blackstone, her favorite restaurant, and invited 40 people including both sets of parents, Alex, our closest friends, and several colleagues from my office. The guest list represented everyone who mattered in our social circle, all the people who would need to understand the truth about what had been happening in my marriage. It was the perfect stage for the performance I was planning. But first, I needed to prepare for the aftermath. I contacted Patricia Hoffman, a divorce attorney whose reputation for protecting her clients' interests bordered on legendary. Her initial consultation fee was $500, but after reviewing the evidence Marcus had compiled, she smiled with genuine approval. "This is one of the strongest adultery cases I've seen in years," she said, studying the photographs and transcripts. Colorado is technically a no-fault state, but adultery can absolutely impact asset division, especially when we can prove that marital funds were used to facilitate the affair. How much money have you given your brother during the time period of their relationship? I calculated quickly. Approximately $28,000 in tuition and living expenses, plus probably another $3,000 in smaller gifts and emergency help. And you can document all of those payments? Every single one. Patricia's smile widened. Then we can make a very compelling argument that your brother used your money to seduce your wife. The court won't look favorably on that. I can have divorce papers prepared and ready to file immediately after your confrontation. Next, I met with my company's HR director to discuss the transfer opportunity in Seattle. The position came with a substantial raise and full relocation assistance, including help selling my current home. When would you be available to start? Janet Morrison asked. Potentially as early as May 1st, depending on how quickly I can resolve some personal matters. We'd love to have you out there, Ryan. The West Coast operation has been asking specifically for someone with your expertise. Finally, I reorganized all of my financial accounts. I moved funds into individual accounts that Vanessa couldn't access and changed the beneficiaries on my life insurance and retirement plans. If something happened to me after our separation, she wouldn't receive a penny. The most difficult part of the preparation was continuing to act normally. I had to pay Alex's April tuition bill, transfer the monthly allowance to my parents, and maintain the facade of being a loving husband to a woman who was planning to divorce me for my own brother. Alex called me the Wednesday before Vanessa's party. Hey brother, I'm really looking forward to Saturday night. Is there anything I can do to help with the setup? The casual affection in his voice, as if he weren't planning to steal my wife, made me want to reach through the phone and strangle him. Actually yes, I replied. Could you come over Friday evening to help me rearrange some furniture? I want to make sure there's enough space for everyone. Of course. Anything for my favorite sister-in-law's birthday. His favorite sister-in-law. The woman he was sleeping with every Tuesday and Thursday afternoon while I was at work. Great. Come over around 6. We'll order dinner and make an evening of it. Sounds perfect. And Ryan, thanks again for everything you do for me. I know I don't say it enough, but you're the best brother anyone could ask for. I hung up and stared at the phone, marveling at his ability to sound so sincere while living such a massive lie. But then again, I was becoming quite skilled at deception myself. Friday evening arrived with perfect timing. Alex showed up right at 6 o'clock, carrying a bottle of wine and wearing his most charming smile. Vanessa greeted him with a hug that lingered just slightly too long, but they were careful not to be too obvious in front of me. We spent the evening moving tables and chairs, ordering Thai food and discussing plans for the party. Alex entertained us with stories from his final semester, and Vanessa laughed at all his jokes with obvious adoration. I played my part perfectly, the devoted husband and loving brother, all while counting down the hours until I would destroy both their worlds. This is going to be such a wonderful party, Vanessa said as we finished arranging the dining room. I can't believe you went to all this trouble for me. You deserve the best, I replied, meaning it in ways she couldn't possibly understand. Saturday morning, I picked up the cake, an elaborate 3-layer creation with "Happy 30th Birthday Vanessa," written in elegant script across layers of her favorite chocolate and raspberry. I had also arranged for a professional photographer to document the entire evening, ostensibly to capture memories of the celebration. Guests began arriving at 6 p.m. My parents had flown in from Chicago and were staying at the downtown Hilton. Vanessa's parents drove down from Fort Collins. Friends, colleagues, and neighbors filled our house with laughter and conversation, everyone eager to celebrate the woman they thought they knew. Alex arrived fashionably late, carrying an expensive bouquet of white orchids and a gift wrapped in silver paper with an elaborate bow. He hugged Vanessa with just enough intimacy to make me nauseous, but everyone else interpreted it as familial affection. You look absolutely stunning tonight, he told her, and she blushed like a teenager with her first crush. The party was proceeding exactly as I had hoped. Everyone was relaxed and happy, enjoying excellent food and good company. Vanessa was radiant, playing the role of gracious hostess while basking in the attention and celebration. She kept thanking me for organizing such a wonderful evening, telling everyone what a thoughtful and considerate husband I was. Around 8:30 p.m., after dinner had been cleared and people were mingling with dessert and coffee, I decided it was time. I stood up and gently tapped my wine glass with a fork, calling for attention. Friends and family, I began, raising my glass as the photographer positioned himself to capture the moment. Thank you all for being here tonight to celebrate Vanessa's 30th birthday. Applause and cheers filled the room. Vanessa beamed at me from her chair, and Alex raised his glass along with everyone else, completely unsuspecting of what was about to happen. As many of you know, Vanessa and I have been married for 5 wonderful years. In that time, I thought I knew everything about my wife, her hopes, her dreams, her secrets. I paused, watching as Vanessa's smile began to falter slightly. Alex shifted uncomfortably in his chair. But recently, I discovered that Vanessa has been keeping a very significant secret from me. Something that has changed our marriage in ways I never could have imagined. The room grew quieter as people sensed the shift in my tone. My mother looked concerned, and several guests exchanged confused glances. You see, my beloved wife has been having an affair. The reaction was immediate and dramatic. Gasps echoed throughout the room, someone dropped a coffee cup, and multiple conversations stopped mid-sentence. Vanessa shot to her feet, her face flushed with embarrassment and anger. "Ryan, what are you doing?" she hissed through clenched teeth. "But here's the truly fascinating part," I continued, ignoring her interruption and speaking to the captivated audience. "The man she's been sleeping with isn't some stranger she met at the gym. It's my own brother Alex." If the first revelation had created shock, this one created chaos. Several people gasped audibly, others looked around in confusion, and I could see my colleague from work nearly choking on his wine. Alex's face had gone completely white. "That's enough," my father shouted, rising from his chair. "Ryan, you're making a scene. This is neither the time nor the place for this kind of discussion." "Actually, Dad, I think this is the perfect time and place," I replied calmly. "Since they've been making a fool of me for 8 months, I thought it was only fair to return the favor." "You're drunk?" my mother said desperately. "You don't know what you're saying." "I'm completely sober, Mom. And I have proof." I pulled out my tablet and connected it to the large television screen we had set up for displaying family photos during the party. Within seconds, crystal-clear footage from my hidden camera filled the screen. Alex and Vanessa in passionate embrace on our living room sofa. The room erupted into complete pandemonium. Half the guests immediately headed for the door, unwilling to witness any more of the spectacle. Vanessa's mother started crying loudly. Alex jumped from his chair and lunged toward me, trying to grab the tablet. "Turn that off right now," he demanded. "You're humiliating everyone." "Humiliating everyone?" I laughed without any trace of humor. "You mean like you humiliated me by sleeping with my wife? Like you humiliated me by bragging about it to your college friends?" I pulled out my phone and read some of the text messages Marcus had captured. "Ryan's such a Boy Scout, he'd never suspect anything. It's almost too easy." Alex's face crumbled as he realized how much I knew. "Ryan, please let me explain." "Explain what?" "How you've been using my money to wine and dine my wife. How you've been laughing at me behind my back while I paid for your education and your living expenses." By this point, most of the guests had fled, unable or unwilling to witness the complete destruction of what they had thought was a happy family. Only our parents and 2 of our closest friends remained, all of them looking stunned by what they had witnessed. But what happened next was the biggest shock of the entire evening. "Ryan, that's enough," my mother said firmly, her voice cutting through the chaos. "You've made your point. Now put this childish display aside and work on saving your marriage." I stared at her in complete disbelief. "Childish display?" "Yes, childish," my father agreed, his face red with anger. "Airing your dirty laundry in public like this is disgraceful. You should be trying to work things out privately like adults do." "They betrayed me, Dad. Alex betrayed me. Your son has been sleeping with my wife for 8 months, and you're calling my reaction childish?" "Mistakes happen," my mother said, her tone becoming almost condescending. "Alex is young. He made an error in judgment. But that doesn't mean you should destroy your entire family over it." "My family?" I couldn't believe what I was hearing. "What about my marriage? What about what they did to me?" "Your marriage can be saved if you're willing to work at it," my father replied. "But only if you stop this vindictive behavior and start acting like the mature son I raised." Vanessa's parents had quietly slipped out during the confrontation, but Alex was still standing there, looking like he wanted to disappear into the floor. "Alex made a mistake," my mother continued. "A big one, yes. But he's sorry, aren't you, Alex?" Alex nodded miserably. "Ryan, I never meant for this to happen. It just developed over time. We tried to fight it, but you didn't try very hard, did you?" I interrupted. 8 months, Alex. 8 months of lying to my face while I paid your tuition and supported your dreams. "I'll pay you back," Alex said desperately. "Every penny. I'll get a job, I'll drop out of school if I have to." With what money? I laughed harshly. You can't even afford your own groceries. We'll help him, my father said. Your mother and I will figure something out. With what money, Dad? You're living on disability and Social Security. The only reason you're not struggling financially is because I send you $800 every month. That seemed to give them pause, but my mother quickly recovered. Money isn't everything, Ryan. Family is more important than money. Family, I repeated slowly, letting the word hang in the air. You mean the family that just chose to side with the person who betrayed me rather than support the person who's been taking care of everyone for years? We're not choosing sides, my mother insisted. We're trying to keep this family together. No, you are choosing sides. And it's crystal clear which side you've chosen. I walked over to the table where I had placed Vanessa's birthday gifts and picked up an envelope I had prepared earlier. Since we're having such an honest conversation, let me give you all one final birthday present. I opened the envelope and pulled out several legal documents. These are divorce papers. I filed them this morning. Vanessa, you have 30 days to respond. Vanessa finally found her voice. Ryan, please, can't we at least talk about this privately? Work something out. Talk about what? How you've been planning to leave me for months. How you've been researching divorce attorneys and asset division. Marcus Webb is a very thorough investigator, Vanessa. I know about every aspect of your deception. Her face went even paler. You hired a private investigator? I hired the best private investigator in Denver. I know about every hotel you've been to, every restaurant where you've held hands under the table, every lie you've told me about where you were and what you were doing. Alex stepped forward, his voice shaking. Ryan, I love her. I know that doesn't make any of this right, but I genuinely love her. Love her? I turned to face him directly. You love her enough to sneak around with her while I'm paying for your entire life? You love her enough to mock me to your fraternity brothers? You love her enough to plan a future with her while lying to my face every single day? It wasn't supposed to happen this way, Alex said weakly. Then how was it supposed to happen? Were you planning to come to me together after graduation and explain how you'd fallen in love? Make me the understanding brother who steps aside gracefully for true love. The guilty expressions on both their faces confirmed that I had guessed correctly. That's exactly what you were planning, wasn't it? I continued. You were going to turn yourselves into the romantic heroes of this story and me into the obstacle standing in the way of your happiness. Ryan, Vanessa said quietly, we never wanted to hurt you. Never wanted to hurt me? I laughed incredulously. Every time you kissed him, you hurt me. Every lie you told me hurt me. Every time you made love to him in our house while I was working to support both of you hurt me. I turned to address my parents directly. But here's what hurts the most of all. The fact that my own parents are more concerned about protecting the people who betrayed me than supporting the son who's been taking care of them for years. That's not fair, my mother protested. We love you both equally. No, you don't. If you loved me equally, you would be appalled by what Alex did. If you loved me equally, you would be asking how I'm doing instead of how to minimize the consequences of his actions. My father stepped forward. Son, you're upset. You're not thinking clearly. In a few days, when you've calmed down, you'll see that destroying your family isn't the answer. I'm not destroying my family, Dad. My family destroyed itself the moment Alex decided to seduce my wife, and you decided to defend him for it. I walked over to my briefcase and pulled out another envelope. Since we're being so honest tonight, there are a few more things you should all know. I opened the envelope and pulled out several bank statements. Alex, I've closed the account I was using to pay your tuition and living expenses. The spring semester was your last free ride. Alex's face went white. Ryan, I can't finish school without your help. Then you should have thought about that before you decided to sleep with my wife. That's cruel, my mother said. You're destroying his future over a mistake. A mistake. I repeated. Mom, he didn't accidentally trip and fall into bed with my wife. He made a conscious decision to pursue a relationship with her, day after day for 8 months. Those weren't mistakes, they were choices. I pulled out additional documents. And since we're discussing finances, here are the statements for the account I've been using to send you and Dad $800 every month for the past 4 years. My parents exchanged worried glances. I'm closing that account as well. As of Monday morning, you'll be financially independent. Ryan, you can't do that, my father said, his voice rising with panic. We need that money for my medications and your mother's treatments. Then you'll have to find another way to pay for them. Maybe Alex can get a job and help you out, since you're so determined to support him. Please, my mother said, tears starting to form in her eyes. Don't punish us for Alex's mistakes. I'm not punishing you for Alex's mistakes, Mom. I'm ending financial relationships with people who have made it clear that I'm not a priority in their lives. The room fell silent except for my mother's quiet crying. Even Alex seemed to finally understand the magnitude of what had just occurred. Vanessa spoke up, her voice barely above a whisper. What do you want from us, Ryan? What will it take for you to forgive this? I looked at her for a long moment, studying the face I had once thought I knew completely. Nothing, Vanessa. There's absolutely nothing any of you can do. You made your choice when you decided to sleep with my brother. Alex made his choice when he decided to betray the person who was supporting him. My parents made their choice when they decided to defend both of you instead of supporting me. So that's it? Alex asked. You're just going to cut us all out of your life forever? You cut yourselves out of my life the day you started this affair. I'm just making it official. I walked over to the mantel where we displayed family photos from holidays, weddings, and celebrations over the years. With one deliberate motion, I swept them all onto the floor, the sound of breaking glass punctuating my final statement. The movers will be here Monday morning to collect my belongings, I told Vanessa. I've already secured an apartment across town. You can stay in the house until the divorce is finalized and we're forced to sell it. Where will you go? My mother asked through her tears. Seattle. I've accepted a promotion with my company's West Coast division. I start in 3 weeks. Seattle? Vanessa looked genuinely shocked. You're moving to Seattle? As far away from all of you as I can get while remaining in the continental United States. I grabbed my keys and wallet from the table. I'm going to a hotel tonight. I can't stand to be in this house for another minute. As I headed toward the door, my father called after me one last time. Ryan, don't do this. Don't let your pride destroy your family. I stopped and turned around slowly. My pride? Dad, this has nothing whatsoever to do with pride. This is about self-respect. And if you can't understand the difference between those two concepts, then perhaps it's better that we don't have a relationship going forward. The last thing I heard as I walked out the door was my mother saying to Alex, Don't worry, sweetheart. He'll come around eventually. He always does. But I knew with absolute certainty that I wouldn't. Some betrayals cut too deep, some wounds are too severe to heal. They had shown me exactly how much I truly meant to them, and for the first time in my life, I had learned to believe them. 3 weeks later, I boarded a plane to Seattle carrying 2 suitcases and the kind of freedom that can only come from having nothing left to lose. I had traded my entire previous existence, house, marriage, family, social circle, for a fresh start in a city where nobody knew my story. The divorce proceedings were swift and brutal. Patricia Hoffman proved to be every bit as ruthless as her reputation suggested, and the evidence Marcus had compiled made Vanessa's position legally indefensible. She was forced to buy out my half of the house equity, which left her with substantial debt and monthly payments she could barely afford on her new marketing coordinator salary. More significantly, the court ruled that Alex would be liable for repaying a portion of the money I had spent on his education during the period of the affair, nearly $18,000 that he had no realistic way of obtaining. Alex dropped out of college 3 weeks before graduation, unable to afford his final semester without my support. He moved back to Chicago to live with our parents and took a job in construction, earning $12 an hour doing manual labor that left him exhausted and barely able to cover basic expenses. My parents were forced to sell their house when they couldn't make the mortgage payments without my monthly contributions. They moved into a cramped senior living apartment, and my father's health deteriorated rapidly when he could no longer afford his more expensive medications. I learned all of this through mutual friends and social media, but I felt nothing but cold satisfaction at the news. They had made their choices with full knowledge of the potential consequences, and I felt no obligation to rescue them from the natural results of their decisions. Seattle proved to be exactly what I needed. The promotion came with a 40% salary increase and put me in charge of logistics operations for the entire Pacific Northwest region. My new colleagues were impressed by my work ethic and innovative solutions to complex supply chain problems. More importantly, nobody in Seattle knew about my past. I wasn't the betrayed husband, the abandoned son, or the brother who had been deceived. I was simply Ryan Mitchell, a successful logistics executive who had relocated for career advancement. I rented a modern apartment in Capitol Hill with views of Elliott Bay and began exploring the city with the enthusiasm of someone who had been given a second chance at life. I joined a hiking club, took sailing lessons, and discovered that I actually enjoyed socializing when I wasn't constantly worried about managing other people's needs and emotions. For the first time in my adult life, every dollar I earned belonged to me. I bought expensive clothes, ate at restaurants I couldn't have afforded while supporting an extended family, and traveled to places I had only dreamed about visiting. The financial freedom was intoxicating, but the emotional liberation was even more powerful. The people who had betrayed me had given me an unexpected gift. They had forced me to discover my own worth. In trying to destroy my old life, they had cleared the ground for something infinitely better. I thought about Alex drinking too much and barely surviving on construction wages. I thought about Vanessa, struggling with trust issues and depression in her small apartment. I thought about my parents who, knowing they had driven away the son who had loved them most. I felt no satisfaction in their struggles, but I also felt no urge to rescue them. They had made their choices with full knowledge of potential consequences, just as I had made mine. The difference was that my choices had led to love, prosperity, and peace, while theirs had led to exactly what they deserved. Some stories don't have happy endings in the traditional sense. But sometimes the end of one story is the beginning of a much better one. Sometimes the people who hurt you the most give you exactly what you need to become who you were always meant to be. My name is Ryan Mitchell, and this is the story of how betrayal taught me the difference between being needed and being valued, between supporting others and supporting yourself, between the family you're born into and the family you deserve. It's the story of how the worst day of my life became the foundation for the best years I've ever known. Thank you for watching the video to the end. Maybe YouTube will no longer offer you my channel, so subscribe to it by clicking subscribe on the right under the video to receive new interesting stories. Also on the right of the video there is a playlist with other interesting stories that you can listen to, and you can also write in the comments what stories you would like to see on the channel.